Hello and welcome back to The Hatch. I'm Rosie Murphy.
And I'm Sammy Roth, and this is the podcast where we talk about Lost.
We're in Season 5. We have reached Episode 3, Jughead.
It's a Desmond episode, early in the year for a Desmond episode, which I'd forgotten, but I'm a fan of that.
And of course, you'll remember that Jughead is the name of a nuclear bomb. We'll get into it. But after we do, we've got the first part of an interview with Rob Kyker, who was the prop master on Lost.
And he'll tell us all about making the DHARMA vans and making the DHARMA beer cans and all sorts of good Season 5 stuff.
Let's get started. As you know by now, we start every episode of The Hatch with a hot take about this week's episode. Sammy, what's your hot take about Jughead?
So I'm going to double down on my hot take from last week about young Charles Widmore. Again, watching his scenes in this week's episode, he is just so, like, comically terrible that I can't help but love it. I mean, it's horrible, but it's kind of fun to watch. I mean, he and his young, friend and comrade there, his friend is going to take them back to their camp, and he doesn't like that, so he breaks the dude's neck, and just runs away.
Mm-hmm.
He kills his friend, cold blood, no regrets, and just runs off into the jungle. And lucky for him, Locke, who, like Charles Widmore, will one day be the leader of the others, is much more generous and merciful than he is, and doesn't want to kill one of his own people, so he lets him go, unlike what Charles does to his friend. And then later we get that amazing moment when Widmore gets back to camp, and Nestor Cardinal Richard is like,
How did you escape? I ran, and it never occurred to you that they might follow you. Follow me? Their leader is some sodding old man. What, you think he can track me? You think he knows this island better than I do?
And we just immediately get this cut to Locke standing at the edge of the camp, looking out over it because he's such a good tracker.
It's very funny.
I just think that my take on Widmore last week, that this kid is just like a horrible young punk asshole, jerk. I can't use enough terms there, but I think I was right on.
And he grows up to be a horrible old rich, domineering, power-hungry old man. I mean...
Yeah. What did Eloise ever see in this guy?
Unclear.
Very. Anyway, that's my hot take. Charles Widmore's a punk. Rosie, what about you?
I'll take it. So I'm actually going to revise a position that I've held for a while, which is that, I wanted... And actually, I still hold this position, which is that I wanted a better ending for Charlotte and for her not to just be sort of relegated into being Daniel Faraday's love interest. However, the scene in the tent where Daniel sort of talks himself into going to see the bomb by saying,
"If you don't allow me to render it inert, all of us are going to die. All of us."
How do I know you weren't sent here on some suicide mission? I'll take you out to the bomb. You'll just detonate it.
Because I'm in love with the woman sitting next to me. And I would never do anything to hurt her.
That's a fantastic line. I'm sorry. It's so moving. He delivers it so well. It's really, really sweet. And I was really touched by it. And I'm willing to see if I continue to be touched by this romantic plotline, even though I wanted something different for Charlotte.
Well, I gotta tell you, I wanted to not like it when I watched it, but you've inspired me a bit here. I'm thinking about it, and it was beautiful from Daniel Faraday's end. He did deliver it well. I still don't like it from Charlotte's end, but from the Faraday way of looking at it, I think you got me on board there.
That said, it does almost make it worse when Charlotte again asks him, "Hey, do you know what's happening to me?"
Yes.
And he doubles down on the lie. Like that, this is a point from last week on which I will double down, which is it's time to tell her what's happening. Clearly, this is getting severe. By the end of the episode, I mean, she is unconscious. It's getting a little cruel at this point, I think, to keep her in the dark.
No, I agree, and I mean, I think we're moving on from hot take territory into episode discussion here. But I mean, I was pretty frustrated with Daniel this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give it to you on the the confession of love in that moment. Like Jeremy Davies sells the hell out of that. But I mean, how does he think he's going to be fulfilling this promise that he's not going to let anything happen to her? Like, he knows what's happening. He doesn't want to tell her, and all he can come up with is, "I promise you, I'm going to make sure you're fine." Like, he knows he can't do that. He knows he can't do that.
Well, yeah, both given the fact that her consciousness is traveling through time, and given the circumstances in which they find themselves, which is that he's got to go disarm this nuclear bomb that's like swinging ominously from this tower. I mean, there's a lot of danger in this situation, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah, no, but I mean in terms of the time flash, I mean, we see the history here. I had frankly forgotten that, what Faraday did to his, his I guess, ex-girlfriend here, Teresa. As we learn in flashback, he used her as an experimental subject and wrecked her brain and did to her a version of, ultimately what happens to Charlotte. But it's even worse for Charlotte because she dies. I mean, one, how could he do something like that to someone you care about, that he put her through those experiments? And two, did he? I mean, it's like he learned nothing. He can't protect Charlotte. He knows he can't protect Charlotte. What does he think he's going to accomplish here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more a statement of wish than a statement of fact, right? Like, he does know what's happening, not just because he's seen it before, but because he's lost someone he loves to it at his own hand, right? It was his fault.
Right. I guess that does kind of explain why he wants to believe that he can save Charlotte.
Yeah, and I think he sees it happening again to another person he cares about, and knows more. I mean, that was years ago. Like, he has continued to study this. I think deep down, of course, he knows that there's nothing he can do, but he doesn't want to let himself believe that, and so that would be step one, a process in which step two is sort of explaining to Charlotte what's happening, and he won't even take step one, which is admitting that this person is going to die, which is so sad.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. It's a tough position for Daniel to be in because he can't do anything. Like, he truly is powerless here. I mean, he did his best last week with, telling Desmond, "Go find my mother," I guess. Like, that was just about the only thing he really could have done there. But, I wish he could handle things better in the present, and obviously I wish he had handled things better in the past. I mean, that one's totally on him with Teresa. Yeah, well, and I think he knows that, which is what makes this, I'm sure, so much worse for him. Yeah. Man, there were some funny, despite all that, there were some funny Faraday lines in this episode. When Miles says, "Or they're dead," and Faraday's about their friends, and Faraday's response is, "Miles, that right there, that kind of attitude, not exactly what we need right now." It is funny to have Daniel Faraday, like, keeping up group morale. It's not exactly his specialty. But the thing is, I know I'm a broken record of Rick. Jeremy Davies just delivers lines so well. Like, I think you could write any line of dialogue for him, and he did the same thing when I think I was saying last week or the week before, when he had that great pause between we're either in the past or we're in the future. He did the same thing this week with when he was asked, "When's the next flash going to be?" Could be 5 minutes. Could also be 5,000 years. The scale of that is really funny. I assumed he was going to say, like, 5 years. No. Add 3 zeros to that. It's great. It's really great. Yeah. Oh, gosh. I do think we have to give Daniel some credit here for maneuvering his party out of a very difficult situation when they're captured and confronted with Richard. I mean, true. He reads the room as well as anybody could. He figures out roughly where they are in time, and he figures out that there is a nuclear bomb present. I mean, the sort of background knowledge that you need to get there is pretty impressive, and to connect all those dots in such a stressful situation, I mean, it's well done. No, I agree with that. And I mean, I thought one of the most interesting things about the storyline was just, his relationship with, or the meeting between him and his mother. And I think we don't even know it's his mother yet, but he seems to recognize her. But I mean, talk about how brilliant Faraday is here. I mean, it's Eloise who's the only one who figures out that he's lying to them.
Right.
Like she's the one, not Richard, who's smart enough to see this doesn't make any sense, that this group of people in this particular situation are all U.S. Army members, and she calls him out on that. And I was watching that and thinking, gee, well, there you go. I mean, he got his brains from somewhere. He didn't get his father's cruel streak, I guess. Thank goodness. But he did get his mother's intelligence.
That's a funny line too, where Daniel decides to tell young Ellie what's going on, and Sawyer shows up and he says, "You told her?"
Yeah, that was so good. The Locke Richard scene I also loved, by the way. With Richard kind of, I think the note that I wrote is that I thought he had a sort of confused credulity. And what I was thinking by that was that it's like he knows that something's going on here, where Locke says, Jacob sent me and this guy has something going on with him. But it also just makes no sense to him whatsoever that this guy is saying, I'm your leader, I'm from the future. So it's like, it seems like Richard, and I think Nestor Carbonell is really funny in this scene. Well, I certainly don't want to contradict myself, after Locke says, you're the one who told me that I'm your leader. So I just like it seems like he knows that something is up, but it also doesn't make any sense to him. And he's trying to sort of piece these things together with Locke. I enjoyed the scene for that reason.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think credulity is a good word for it, because I think Richard's instinct here is to believe John. Like, not believe him outright and not believe him whole cloth, but to, he doesn't dismiss him. And he doesn't say this man is crazy or this man has been sent here by some evil force. Like, I think he pretty quickly recognizes that something is up here and he's got to figure out what it is. And we know, of course, that that he acts on this information that John gives him. And in 2 years, when John Locke is born, Richard's there.
Yeah.
So he did believe it enough to act on it.
He did. And this was very cool, like a kind of retroactive explanation, because we've already seen that scene. I mean, we saw in Flashback last year in Cabin Fever. So now we're getting the explanation of like, oh, it's not what you thought. It's not that Locke, was foretold to be the great leader, and Jacob sent Richard to go, examine his birth and check in on him. Like,
Locke foretold himself.
Exactly. He created his own he made his own kind of music, Rosie. Oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps.
Well, and what you were about to say, I think, was that he sort of created that destiny for himself.
Yeah.
Out of his deep desire to have and live in service of a destiny, he created this loop in which he was able to for a while.
Well, gosh, this goes back to our conversation last week about how the ideas of fate and free will are actually quite intertwined and closer together than you might think.
Yeah. I just mimed sort of a head exploding.
I mean, but it's so true. I mean, Locke set in motion a series of events through his own choices that created this fate for him.
Yeah, I mean...
Sort of also manipulated by the Man in Black and a lot of other things, but...
Yeah, I mean, he was the one who planted the seed that he was special. All he ever wanted was to be special. And he believed, we see Richard, we see Jacob showing up throughout his life, and they show up throughout his life presumably because they believe that he is special and that he is destined to be one of the candidates. And, he is the one who put that idea in their heads. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, as I recall, I don't think we've seen this scene yet, but I think we have a scene that comes at some point this year where we have Richard reflects on going and visiting young John Locke throughout his life and basically comments like, I didn't really see anything special about him. I don't think there's anything to this guy. I forget when that line comes, but I know it comes at some point.
Yeah, it does.
So, but what I think that says is that Locke still did have to work for it. Like, he might have created this, even if through manipulation, he may have created this destiny for himself, but it wasn't then just handed to him. Like, he really had to do the work and show that he was special. And eventually Richard does believe. I mean, we see in season 3 and in the brig where, Richard comes to him and says, look, not everyone agrees with our current leadership. Maybe you can help us. And that's Richard having finally come around to the idea that maybe Locke is in fact special. Yeah.
Yeah. And opening himself up to the idea that he could be his leader.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. This is a good story. I like the story.
A lot of layers there.
Should we talk about Desmond, or do you have some more on-island stuff?
Oh, gosh. So we get to fill in a lot of the gaps here in Desmond's life. We see the birth of his son on a boat, who of course they named Charlie, which is really lovely.
It's a beautiful scene. I'd forgotten that scene. They both look so happy. It's great.
Yeah, and Desmond is finally getting to have this life with Penny, and they seem very happy despite an unconventional choice to sort of live on a boat and sail around the world. But it does seem so nice, and I really like the ending of the episode where Desmond comes back from confronting Widmore, which he promised Penny he wouldn't do. He comes back to the boat and says, Eloise is dead. Penny knows that that's not true. Where is she? And Desmond says, okay, well, she's in Los Angeles, but I'm never going to go. I'm done. And Penny calls him on his bullshit right away and says, like, no, you're not. You're never going to let this go. So, I have to go with you. And I think that's just really like a really nice note to end on, knowing that they have been, obviously this isn't the end of this story, but with all the stuff that they've been through and that we've seen, Penny does know that he's not going to be able to let this go and feel like he doesn't have to finish out this mission. But she accepts it.
I mean, I agree that was nice from Penny's end. I wish she hadn't done that.
Yeah. Because
we know what's coming. We know Dead is coming, and, Ben shooting Desmond and almost, killing Penny and only holding back because her son shows up. I gotta tell you, I was, as much as I enjoyed the storyline, even though, it wasn't really Penny's fault, like, I was pretty frustrated with Desmond this whole time. And please tell me if you think I'm being overly harsh here, but, I know he had this, quote-unquote memory that came to him in a dream, and he feels like it's important, and he wants to help his friends, because dream memory, Daniel Faraday told him they're all in danger, but, he's really putting Penny and Charlie at risk here, and he knows he's doing that, and he promises to Penny that, her father's never going to know they were in London, and then he goes and visits the guy.
That was a bit much. A choice that probably wouldn't have made.
I don't think I would have. I guess you can argue about whether it was important to pursue this at all. Mm-hmm. And I guess part of this is hindsight, because ultimately it's not important, because Ben is already in touch with Eloise. Right. And Desmond shows up and they're all already there, and it's like, okay, I'm out, clearly I don't need to be here. So it's a little frustrating in that regard. But I'm just kind of watching this and thinking, like, what are you doing, Des? Like, you're putting your family at risk. He's wearing glasses in Oxford, and when like that's going to stop someone from recognizing him. He's got sunglasses on the whole time, and like indoors.
A big scarf.
Yeah, like you don't look like a different person. Like, you're still Desmond Hume. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I think that he could have really, certainly I think he shouldn't have gone to see Widmore and should have just let it drop at that point. And I think there's an argument to be made that the most responsible thing for him to have done would have been to just, like he tried to do at the end, to his credit, to just pretend this never happened.
Yeah. So I definitely ready to agree with you that he should not have gone to see Charles Widmore. It accomplishes nothing. It lets Widmore know where they are, and it breaks a promise, an implicit and explicit promise that he made to Penny. Shouldn't have done that.
He also seems, as far as we see, he doesn't tell Penny that he went to see her father. Like, he's still hiding from her that he broke that promise.
Yeah. So that sucks. On the sort of broader quest, though, I I mean, so I think Desmond has always been, he's known for years that something is up with him, that he does have these memories that are distinct from your understanding and my understanding of memory, that he has this power to kind of, move around in the world in a way that we can't. Like, he learned that throughout season 3 and 4. And Daniel Faraday was the person who explained that to him, right? And said, here's what's happening to you. Here's what it means. And Daniel Faraday saved his life by saying you need to find a constant.
That's true.
And so I think that one possible explanation is that, not that Desmond feels he owes anything to Faraday, although I think he probably does at least a little bit, but that if Faraday is sort of sending him a message this way, it must be critically important,
Right, and it must be something that only he can do because of his special abilities that you were describing.
Kinda, yeah, and because he's the only way anyone can get a message off the island, kind of. I think if it had been someone else, he would have said that was just a weird memory or that was just a weird dream. If it had been a conversation with Sawyer, I don't think it would have meant this much because it wouldn't have had the intentionality that Faraday coming to him in this way does. I think that, like, obviously the instructions are very cryptic, like, go to Oxford and find my mother. Like, what does that even mean? And it sort of turns into this thing that's bigger than what it was supposed to be, maybe, when he finds out that, like, Faraday's research has been erased from institutional memory and that he, gravely injured this woman. And, like, he didn't know he was getting into any of that. He probably thought he was going to go see some woman who, like, is the professor emeritus who just, like, knits most of the time and teaches one question per, he didn't know what it was going to be. Should he have gone? Like, of course not. But I don't think it's irrational that he did go, just because it's not just a memory, right? It's because it's Desmond and because it's Faraday. It's not just a random memory.
Right.
It's a message.
That's extremely reasonable.
Also, I love Desmond and I will defend him, but
I mean, I love Desmond too. I think that a lot of it for me was probably just motivated by the hindsight of knowing that this is not going somewhere good and feeling like just wishing that he could avoid that.
Yeah.
And that Penny and Shirley could avoid the sort of trauma and drama that's to come. But that's reasonable. Your look at it is super reasonable about why he'd feel compelled here. And again, to his credit, he does try to back out at the end, and then it's Penny who says, "No, you've got to pursue this. I know you're doing this for me, but don't do this for me."
Yeah, and you do. I mean, kind of like, at the end of this season, we're going to see that Juliet and Sawyer have a chance to leave the island and to go have a happy life. And I feel similarly about this scene, is like, you guys have a chance to just walk away from all of this and go live a happy life. And Desmond seemingly wants to, but kind of can't, and Penny doesn't really think he can either. And so they,
Yeah, and that's a good
tragic
comparison, because there's a part of me as a viewer as well in that scene when they're on the sub that just thinks, guys, just go, forget about it. Like Juliet and Sawyer, like you guys can go be happy now. And of course that's not the choice they make, and you're probably right. Of course that's not the choice Desmond makes here.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes just watching a show like this and knowing all the stuff they're going to go through, it's like you just want them to make a choice and go be happy on their own and forget about everyone else. Which,
can't anybody just go be happy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that goes against the live together, die alone ethos that's at the heart of all this. These are all people who ultimately are going to, put themselves on the line to save each other, which makes them good people. But man, it's tough. I just want to say as well, I started by insulting Widmore pretty bad. And I will say that at the end, when Desmond is, visiting him in his office, we get just about the closest we ever get to real humanity from Widmore there. Where, I mean, of course he wants to know about Penny and how she's doing, but I thought especially the line where he tells Desmond to don't put her in any danger, and he says,
"You're getting yourself involved in something that goes back many, many years. It has nothing to do with you or my daughter. Wherever you were hiding, go back there."
He did show some, baseline level of caring for another human being, his daughter there, and he deserves a modicum of credit for that, I think.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that we should give him credit for is caring for Teresa Spencer, or funding her care.
True. True.
I mean, I think that shows generous interpretation is that he regrets what happened to her. This research he was funding led to her incapacitation. Less generous explanation is that he paid them off and wanted to keep this all a secret. But either way, it's allowing this woman to live a decent life.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I'm willing to give him some credit for that. That's fine. I mean, he could have just killed them if he wanted to keep it a secret, and he didn't do that. I mean, this is Charles Widmore.
This is a ridiculously powerful rich man we're talking about here, right? He
sent Martin Keamy and his goons to the island to kill everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have to do that, but in theory recognized that these people that this woman was innocent of all this, and,
Yeah. Should we go to the Rob Kyker?
Yeah, I think absolutely we should. I won't say too much to lead us into this because the first question we're going to ask is that he describe what a prop master does. But it's fascinating. It's a lot of fun. Let's play it.
Hello, today on The Hatch, we are here with Rob Kyker. He was the prop master on Lost. He has a very interesting role on the show that's totally different than anyone we've had on The Hatch podcast before, so I think you're going to be excited to hear it. Rob, thank you so much for being with us on The Hatch.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start with something real basic for people who might not know. What is it that you do? What is a prop master?
I'm in charge of anything that an actor touches, in addition to some other things like animals and cars and stuff like that. But for the most part, if an actor interacts with something, i.e. A wristwatch, a knife, a pair of glasses, eyeglasses, a watch, whatever, that's me. So basically I will read a script, break down all of the props, identify all of the props that are in the script, and then go from there.
So you actually have to go out and find the stuff or make the stuff, or how do you? So you actually have to just make it happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. On a show like Lost, I came in at the end of the second season, so there was some stuff that was already established when I got there, and then there was anything that happened in episode 3 through the end. That was I created that, or helped in that process in some way.
You mentioned animals? Did you get to work with Vincent, the dog?
Yeah, we worked with Vincent the dog quite a bit, and there were actually Vincent the dog was, if I remember correctly, there were 2 or 3 when it was all said and done.
Okay,
I think that's right. Yeah.
And the one that the last one, the one that I found, her name was Pono, and what a sweet dog! And it was actually the guy that owned the local acai bowl place, and everybody on the crew went to this place. It was right by the studio. And he had a blonde lab that was just beautiful, but obviously whatever it was now, Pono was a boy and the dog was supposed to be a girl. So if you look carefully, you can tell the difference between our dogs over the course of 6 years.
I would say that nobody was paying attention, but this was Lost, so probably people were.
Somebody was paying attention.
I'm sure we got mail about it.
So actually, that's interesting. So is that normal? Were you hearing from fans about this stuff? Because I just was thinking, with Lost, people were paying such close attention and grabbing screenshots. And was it different than other stuff you've done?
It was, and I'll tell you, because of just the insane fandom and the interest was like unlike anything I've ever worked on before. And in many ways, I think it's still unique in that sense. I mean, X-Files had that kind of following, but and then when we were doing that was, God, I'm dating myself, but if I remember correctly, it was kind of like the invent of social media at the same time. I think Facebook was obviously around, but I don't think Instagram, but maybe the beginning of Twitter. And so that happened, it seemed like at the same time that our show was reaching the superstardom. So we got mail, we got letters, we got phone calls. I think the last time I told you, I'll tell you a quick story about that. One of the scenes, June, what was that actress name? Sun.
Yeah, Yoonjin Kim.
Yoonjin Kim was on a cell phone in a park in a flashback. And I did a lot of research because there were, phones weren't as prevalent as they are now. And I found a super cool flip phone for whatever that year was. And I got no less than a dozen emails, phone calls, or mails saying that like the scene that we shot took place in January or February of a certain year. And people called me and said, that phone didn't come out until October of that year. So that's the level. That's a good example of the level of scrutiny that our show got. But hey, I'm all about it. It kept us honest.
Did you have other people working with you, or were you doing it all on your own?
Oh no, not on my own by any stretch. If you're asking me about my own department, the prop guys, I usually start on the set in the morning, open the guys up, and then I'm very rarely on set anymore. So I had I had 3 assistants on set at all time, and sometimes more.
Very nice. Wow.
And then artistically speaking, we had an amazing art department. I mean, we had the sculptor Jim Van Houten that he sculpted the submarine. I mean, out of foam. This guy could do anything.
Whoa.
He made violins and cellos out of koa wood in his free time.
Wow.
So you should check that guy out. Jim Van Houten. He's called a prop maker, but that guy's a genius. I mean, some of the work that he did was just beautiful. So anyway, no, I didn't do anything by myself. I had tons of help.
The exterior of the submarine was foam? That thing looked real.
Oh my God. Everything was foam on that show. He sculpted everything. The hatch lids, the airplane doors.
Wow.
The submarine, I don't even know I would have to go back and look at some of the stuff, but the guy with everything you saw was foam. All of the cave walls, all of the, it was all foam, and it was all done by this one guy who's a genius.
That's wild.
It's amazing.
Did you, we're watching season 5 right now, which is the season when they go back in time, and go to the DHARMA initiative, and they're all, part of DHARMA in the 1970s. And
Camp Bergman.
Yeah, Camp Bergman. I was just kind of curious. A couple things. One, did you do the DHARMA vans?
I did. In fact, I still have. Well, I mean, the picture car guys found the vans, and the art department painted them. But I did the DHARMA logo, like the metal DHARMA, like where the Volkswagen thing is supposed to be. I'm doing this with my hands, like you guys are filming me.
He's holding up his hands in like a circle.
like the hood ornament.
Exactly, that big Volkswagen. What normally should be a Volkswagen thing on those vans was a DHARMA initiative thing, and that was like the early stages of 3D printing.
Oh, and wow.
And I still have one of those to this day, because I was thinking one of these days I'm going to get a van because I surf, and I'm going to put that DHARMA initiative thing on the front of my van. And it'll happen eventually, but
that's so cool.
So anyway, I still have that in my garage.
What, I mean, the DHARMA vans are, I think, if I had to choose one iconic prop from Lost, I would think it's probably the DHARMA van.
Oh, I don't think so. I think Locke's knife. I think Locke's knife is probably the most iconic Lost prop.
Interesting. Why do you? Oh, go ahead.
You're the expert.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many. But the Locke's knife, Faraday's journal, anything DHARMA. Like I have a DHARMA beer can. I have the first and original DHARMA beer can I made. So I don't think the van is iconic as.
Okay.
Maybe. Like the clock, that countdown timer. That's pretty iconic.
Oh, sure. Okay. The clock, the count. We're in season 5 right now, so my brain is a little bit full of DHARMA. But did you make the clock?
No, the clock existed before I came on the show.
Oh yeah, because
at
the end of season 2.
Although I did kind of tweak it a little bit. I mean, as far as the way it worked, and I think they ended up doing that whole damn thing CGI because it was just a nightmare getting the time to be exactly what they wanted it to be.
Oh yeah, what's the story about that again? Could you remind us?
I can't remember now. It was a countdown, right?
Yeah, and it was 108 minutes.
I know. Yeah, exactly. So whenever if it was supposed to be a certain time, imagine what we're doing in real time on a film set. So if I remember correctly, it was like this really wanky, prop made thing where the digital counter, you had to like and type it backwards. So it ended up like taking 15 minutes to reset the clock. I could totally be making all of this up. It's been so long, but I remember the clock being an issue and finally them just doing it CGI.
That's too funny. You said that you made the first DHARMA. Sorry, Rosie. Give me one more second. You said you made the first DHARMA beer can?
I did. Yeah, in fact, the first time we saw DHARMA beer was the first time we saw the van, right? Isn't that like Hurley finds the van with Sawyer?
They find the van and it's full of beer.
It's full of beer in the back, yeah. And that day, like I made that, my local graphics guy made it, but I designed it and got it approved, those beer cans. And that day, I had Josh and Hurley signed the first one, and I still have it to this day.
Funny.
That's like one of the few things that I kept. I have an autographed beer can from those two. And that, oh my gosh, I felt so bad for Sawyer, Josh. It was, the beer wasn't cold. It was non-alcoholic beer. And he was just chugging that. Oh, nasty.
Gosh.
He's a good sport.
There was something, I always assumed it would have just been water or something.
No, I always made it with non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah.
Just seemed like that was the way to go because I wanted it to have foam and stuff.
Right.
Now I'm imagining you pulling up at the beach to surf with your DHARMA hood ornament and getting out and drinking from your old DHARMA beer can. You'd be the coolest guy on the beach.
Yeah, my van would be stolen.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I do want to ask more broadly about the creation of like the DHARMA stuff. And I know that the DHARMA initiative was sort of established in season 2, so you would have walked in with some of that framework. But by the time we get to season 5, a portion of the main cast, everyone's moving through time, but a portion of the main cast spends several episodes in the 70s at Camp DHARMA, sort of fully embodying that time. How did you approach that when you were thinking about how to make us feel like we were in the 70s as viewers?
Jack had a really good idea of what he wanted, and I don't remember exactly what the reference was or how he said it, but it was always very clear that it was adult creepy summer camp kind of, and if I remember correctly, the colors were really institutional and weird. Like there was some really weird oranges and I remember just the whole vibe being really strange. And it's funny, it's been so long and I'm terrible about this, but like without any kind of prompt, the only thing I can ever really remember about that is we had DHARMA volleyballs, which was pretty funny. And then I remember we took a picture of all of them at some kind of celebration. And I think the photograph actually became pretty iconic.
Yeah, it was the orientation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're wearing leis.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what else is, forgive me if this isn't season 5, but I think this is all in the same time frame. I was just talking to my daughter about this. Have you guys gotten to the scene where like in one of the videos, like one of the film videos, the guy's got the bunny rabbit with the number 8 painted on it?
Yes.
What a pain in the ass that was.
Really?
Oh my gosh. So obviously
Tell us about that. Yeah.
you can't paint a bunny rabbit. So we
I didn't know
found
that. I assumed you could paint a bunny rabbit. That's news to me.
no, like the animal rights people are like, hell no. So we found 4 white rabbits, and we got those the big oversized yellow stencils, and I did that with hairspray, with black hairspray. And you'd think that would be easy enough, right? You just no, but when rabbits get freaked out, like they do what dogs do or other animals do, that they like throw their hair up and stuff.
Oh.
So it just goes everywhere, and it doesn't stay smooth, and they lift their neck up. So we were doing that. And then if you go to wipe that shit off, then it starts making a white rabbit gray. So by the time we got that done, we had like one person washing the rabbit, one person drying the rabbit. I was painting a rabbit, and we had these rabbits going in a circle. Oh, it's just funny that we were just talking about that the other night. Yeah, don't ever let anybody tell you painting a rabbit's easy.
That's amazing. So wait, another thing you mentioned. You said you were involved with Faraday's journal.
Yeah, my brother wrote that.
What do you mean he wrote it?
By hand, like
the on the pages,
like the notations and equations.
Wow.
Yeah. And if I remember, I don't remember. I'm sorry, but I just remember going like searching the internet for super cool and weird drawings and things that had to do with that. And then like I just sent all the stuff to my brother. My brother's left-handed, and he's got beautiful penmanship. And he must have spent a month writing that thing. And then we would get script revisions and stuff, and I would just send him the book back, and he would write in it again. I love that book. And I don't remember, I think that, gosh, I can't remember the exact number, but I think that book at auction went for like $12,000 to $15,000 at the lost auction. Yeah, and it was, oh my gosh, it was a really beautiful prop. I was really proud of that.
I'm not surprised. It's fun. I mean, some of those scenes where he's flipping through, like the moment when you get to, Desmond Hume will be my constant, and you're looking through that book. It looks gorgeous. I mean, your brother did a good. I mean, you both did a good job with that.
That was really neat. I wish I had that one.
Yeah. Are there any other props that you got to be particularly hands-on that you remember vividly like that? Either stuff you made or helped make, or
I do. A couple of props that come to mind for that show that are really like, I have two stories since we're doing this. So there's a scene, and I can't remember. I think it's season 6 actually. So sorry, out of order for you guys.
You're good.
Where good and evil are drinking wine on the beach.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful green carafe.
Yeah.
That looks like from like the 16th century or really early old. And I don't remember why, but for whatever reason, that needed to be breakaway. I don't know if one, I don't know why. I can't remember why, but it needed to be breakaway. So I found them at this, place that makes breakaway glass. And normally, you just find a real one, or normally you don't do it that way. You find a real one and have a breakaway. Anyway, long story short, so I was just going to wing it. We were just going to go with breakaway glass because it's pretty firm and it'll hold liquid for a while. But
for the layman, is breakaway glass something that you can drop it and it'll break in a particular way?
Yeah, you can hit somebody over the head with it. It'll shatter. It's candy glass. It's sugar and water or some kind of formula. I don't know. Anyway, so normally I could get away with that, but we're filming this scene on the beach. And anybody who knows anything about the beach is like, if you wipe away the top layer of sand on the beach to make something flat or hard, you're into wet sand. And the wet sea sand ate the breakaway glass. So my assistant calls me and says, "Hey man, this isn't working. These things aren't lasting." And we couldn't get the cork to make a good seal on the top.
Wait.
So
Rob, I'm sorry, I don't understand. What do you mean it ate what is it supposed to come back together afterwards or what?
No. The scene has nothing to do with the carafe the first time we see it. They're just sitting on the beach on a log drinking
I think
wine,
they're
but
passing a bottle back and forth, and
but they're setting it in the sand.
Oh, I see. So it's like dissolving into the sand.
Yes. So the wet
Okay.
sand is making them not, they're lasting 2 or 3 takes.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I'm screwed. I have no real one, and I'm toast. I mean, we probably have 6 or 12 bottles. It's gonna last us that day, so I'm good for the day. But I got to figure something out for tomorrow. I'm not even kidding you. I took one of those bottles and I took it to the University of Hawaii, and I walked myself into the glass blowing department and showed this guy, luckily a fan of the show, what I had, and that
That's
I was
incredible.
screwed. And he made them. He blew that glass for me in 2 days. And then Jim Van Houten, the guy that I told you about earlier, we figured out a way to paint it. And so I literally came up with a 16th century craft in 2 days from nothing. That's one.
But I'll just, before you tell the second one, I'll just pause. The answer to your question, at the end of that episode, the man in black, played by Titus Welliver, smashes the thing dramatically, and that's like the closing moment of the episode.
Right.
You know, smashed to lost as he smacks the thing into the ground.
It does have to break.
And that's why it had to be breakaway.
Yeah.
The other story, coincidentally, of an iconic prop situation for me has to do with glass as well, but just coincidentally. Ship in a Bottle, I think also season 6. Gosh, what's the guy's name that plays the devil or plays?
Yeah, the man in black. Titus Welliver.
Titus pulls the string and the sails come up, and like we're shooting through the bottle, but you don't realize you're looking at a ship in a bottle because it lines up with the horizon on the ocean.
Ah, yes. Okay. Right. They show the ship on the water coming in, but you're telling me that was really a ship in a bottle situation.
It's a ship in a bottle situation. So in the script, so-and-so pulls the sails up on a script in the bottle. Stephen Williams is directing that episode. And I showed him the ones that I found online, and I showed him big ones. And he's like, no, man, it's got to be this big. And he, it's got to be like the equivalent of a 1 gallon size bottle jug, clear glass jug. And that just doesn't exist. No one on Earth at that time had made what we were looking for. So I did the same thing. I went to the U of H glass blowing department, and that guy blew me 4 beautiful jugs, and then we did 4 because then you have to cut the bottom off of it, and chances are you're going to lose it. We ended up losing 2, had 2 made, and then I found a ship model, and me and my assistant built ship models, and we made that prop in 5 days.
Oh my gosh. Was it the same guy who blew the glass for the carafe?
Yeah. I should reach out to that guy. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he was the associate professor at U of H. And he was a super cool guy, and man, he saved my ass a few times.
Sounds like you should get a credit on the show,
right? For sure.
One thing that I remember, I think in another interview you gave a while back, I heard you say this, and I wanted to ask about it. Is it correct that on Lost, unlike on other shows, that I think you said that you really couldn't throw things out because you never knew when it was going to come back later? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we never threw anything away, and whatever survived the elements or whatever was left from a scene, we kept. There was a huge. In the beginning of season 3, we had moved to Diamond Head Studios, and they built this mezzanine above the paint department that I don't even know, must have been maybe half a football field. It was a big mezzanine. Wow. And that was rows and rows and rows and rows of bins and everything from the pilot all the way to the very end.
Yeah.
We never threw anything away.
I just simply love the description of the DHARMA world as adult creepy summer camp. That is exactly what it is, and that's exactly how it feels. And I appreciate that every single item in that space sort of reflected and advanced that vision.
That also cracked me up, and I just want to say he referenced that was Jack's vision, and in case any listeners were unclear, he was talking about not Jack the character, but of course Jack Bender, the executive producer and one of the guys running the show in Hawaii. So that was a fun story.
Yeah. Just in case you're new to the Hatch, Jack Bender actually spoke to us way back at the beginning of season 1, I think in the first 4-ish episodes of that season. So it'd be fun to go back and listen to that now.
One note that I have on the interview is just that he referenced Faraday's journal going at auction, and I looked that up, and actually he underestimated what it went for. It went for $27,500 at auction, and that was apparently the second highest grossing item in the Lost auction. The highest was a Dharma van, which went for $47,500.
Did it work? Could you have purchased it and just driven it around?
My guess is if it worked, it probably would have gone for even more than that, but I don't know for sure.
Very cool. What a fun fact.
Man, to have $27,500 sitting around to buy a cool prop from Lost, what a life that would be.
Yep.
Anyway, we will be back next week. We'll be watching episode 4, The Little Prince.
We will also have the second half of this conversation with Rob. Tons more great stories from the set.
Yeah, and stick around, of course, every week after that. But for episode 5, we're going to have Fionnuala Flanagan on, who played Eloise Hawking. So we've been having a lot of fun discussion about that character, so it'll be cool to hear more about the person who brought her to life.
In the meantime, you can chat with us anytime on Twitter at The Hatch Podcast or at facebook.com/The Hatch Podcast. If at any point you want to leave us a hot take to play on the show, you can do so by calling 9546-DHARMA.
Yeah, and we love it if you're on social media or on YouTube, writing down a hot take for us. But really, call the number and we'll play it on the show. That's the way to go. We also love it if you rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google or wherever it is you listen to The Hatch. We very much appreciate that.
Our theme music is by Andy G. Cohen, and our cover art is by Danny Roth.
And we will be back next week.
Namaste.